bulkhead in, we decided to tackle the relocation of the Teslas, aka the power part of our propulsion system. It was a long time coming one, but like many boat projects, it had many dependencies that took a while to figure out. But let's start from the beginning. When we installed our new electric propulsion system, the placement of the electric motor was kind of forced by where the end of the shaft was. We initially put the batteries in place of our old diesel engine, as it was an empty convenient space close to the motor, so the main high power cables wouldn't have to be too long. The controller, the relays, and all the equipment needed to run our electric motor in turn was placed close to the batteries, so the only longer cables were 12 volts. The idea was that this is a temporary solution until we test everything out. The first modification came quite quick. It turned out our dream of direct drive was just that, a dream. While using the Lovejoy coupling, the motor could not reach the high RPM it needs, and so it didn't have enough oomph to move the boat in anything but flat water. We needed some kind of reduction. We decided to go with chain and sprockets. Main reasons being it's simple, durable, affordable, and available everywhere in the world. So the reduction was put in, the motor got flipped around, and just as expected, we had much more reasonable power. This is how everything stayed for over 2 years, mostly because we hit a wall trying to come up with an idea of how to encase the whole system yet still have access to all the switches and be able to see all the indicators. Mainly the big knife switch used to switch the batteries between 24 and 48 volt configuration, which we put in because at the time we didn't have the capability to charge more than 24 volts. And 24 volts would be too low for Oiysh's motor to run efficiently. When dealing with the bulkhead, we decided to move the batteries and motor controls out of our way to get easier access to the ceiling we wanted to fix up, and avoid them being in the direct line of fire during grinding. As they were already moved out from their original spot, we were revisiting the idea of moving them out of there permanently. The reason was simple: water, both salty and sweet. For one, the old place was directly in front of the companionway, and two, it was under the kitchen table. What could possibly go wrong? The following was decided. The batteries would be placed next to all the other electronics on the aft bulkhead after slight rearrangement of the space there. First, the raised floor was removed and the water tank hidden there relocated between the old engine supports. We also needed to move and/or get rid of all the stuff that was hidden there. At the beginning, Bartek wasn't too keen on the idea of removing so much storage space, but after I used the argument of getting rid of stuff to keep the boat lighter, he was on board. Then, one wall had to be removed and other two reinforced. A holder for the batteries was also fiberglass together and to the bulkhead. We didn't want to stay without a working motor for too long, so I took a trip to town to buy some 00 gauge welding cables so we could reach from the motor to the new battery place. Also, we used the now empty space under the kitchen table to create a kind of kitchen island. I just love the quality of plywood around here. It was time to start the move. Bartek started to disarm the system. Oh, just in case. You probably should not try this at home. First off, the 2 Tesla modules were disconnected and moved out of the old contraption. As all our previous measurements were done with limited access, Bartek double-checked everything. We used block and tackle to help lift the batteries. Each weighs only 25 kilograms, so it's not that much, unless you're trying to guide it in a very tight place into a slot made with not so straight plywood. After 15 minutes filled with swearing and stress, the first Tesla was it. And then the whole thing was repeated with the second one. Then it was on to the rest of the pieces. The knife switch got a bit of a makeover as we were getting rid of the 24-48 volt switching. Before we get into the juicy details, as experience has taught us that this is a very emotional subject for some, we just wanted to emphasize this is not a how-to video. We are aware of the needs as well as the risks of our system and are fine with them. Okay, so here is the overview. We have two Tesla Model S battery modules, roughly 24 volts to 150 amp hours each. They are connected in series through a switch and a fuse, giving us 12 kilowatt hours on 48 volts. Is an Ultrax 48600 SR. It's connected to the batteries through a big 2-channel 400 amp continuous panic button. We chose it as it was the cheapest without the need to buy any extra programming gadgets. Controller output is then sent through a relay that takes care of the forward-reverse switching. A Mod Energy Model 1003. It can be powered by up to 96 volts to 100 amps continuous, but we ran it at 48 volts and up to 50 amps continuous for a whopping total of 2.4 kilowatts. Which might sound ridiculous, but is more than enough for us. We used the old throttle and Frankensteined it a bit, inserting a potentiometer for the speed control and two switches to serve as the forward-reverse shifter.
The two. Check.
I divided the cost into the batteries, controller, motor, relay, panic button, knife switch, mechanics, and miscellaneous. These days, you can find Tesla Model S modules even cheaper than we've got them at the time. We paid $2,400 for them. Controller, on the other hand, went up a bit. We paid $600. Same with the motor, it is also a bit more expensive. We paid $600. The relay was around $120. The panic button $40 and the knife switch $120. All the mechanics like sprockets, chain and the bearings rounded up to roughly $250. Other miscellaneous parts like equalizers and the few cables we actually needed to buy ended up around $200. But what I think is more important is how much did we spend since?